أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على سيدنا وحبيبنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد فنسأل الله سبحانه وتعالى بأسمائه الحسنى وصفاته العلى أن يجعلنا وإياكم من المستمعين للقول والمتبعين أحسنه وأن يجعل ما نقوله ونسمعه حجة لنا لا علينا يوم الدين ثم أما بعد فالسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. With the will of Allah Jalla wa Ala subhanahu wa ta'ala, we are on a new journey. After we have had a look at the huquq fil Islam, now we want to look at the huquq أن تكون مع خير الأنام, يعني the rights and the etiquettes when you are with the best of people. We are going to do this by looking at a qasida. A qasida يعني written by Abu Madyan. And Abu Madyan, in a separate class I will speak about his life. That is not what we are going to do today. But what we need to know is that this was an amazing man. And one of the things he had written was لذة العيش. And لذة العيش meaning يعني the sweetness of life. And in this poem, rahimahullah azza wa jal, he is speaking about the etiquettes when you are with your brothers, when you are with the shaykh, when you are with yourself, and how you should behave. So the poem is in reality telling us how to behave when we are in the midst of people who are looking for Allah Jalla wa Ala. And like Al-Harith al-Muhasibi rahimahullah azza wa jal, and he died in the 3rd century, he said, rahimahullah, the people, yani Ahlullah, the people of Allah Jalla wa Ala, yani those who are close to Allah, those who have deep knowledge of Allah Jalla wa Ala, they are hidden to the eye. And you are only introduced to these kind of people when Allah lifts the veil for you. Exactly like a prophet was chosen and he didn't ask for prophethood. There is no prophet that said, Ya Rabbi, make me a prophet. No, it was Allah Jalla wa Ala وَاصْطَنَعْتُكَ لِنَفْسِي. I have chosen you for myself. So النبوة بالاصطفاء. Yani the nubuwah, prophethood, is by choice of Allah Jalla wa Ala. And the same is with al-wilaya. Al-wilaya la yu'atiha Allah liman talabaha. Yani being an ally of Allah is not given to those who seek it. Because if you seek for being an ally of Allah, then you are seeking for others than Allah. Then you are seeking for a status. Allah wants you to want Him for no reason. يعني هو أن تكون مع الله بلا علاقة. يعني لا تريد منه شيئا. It is that you are with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala without any reason apart from wanting to be with Him. You don't want to be with Him because it gives you Jannah. You don't want to be with Him because it gives you a status. You don't want to be with Him because it protects you against hell. You want to be protected against hell, but that's not why you want to be with Him. You want to be with Him because you want to be with Him. That's it. And that's the highest form of ikhlas. So now, Ladhatul Aish, Barakallahu Fikum, as Imam Abu Madyan, the writer of this poem, was asked when he was going alone, barefooted, through the desert. Now, in the 6th century, he was going through that desert. And people, they looked at him and they said, why do you go alone and why don't you have a mount? He said, my mount is the dhikr of Allah and my companion is Allah. And what do you want me? I have a camel, it can die. The dhikr of Allah never lets you down. No, when you are in the dhikr of Allah, Allah ma'ak. No, Allah Jalla wa Ala, like in the Hadith al-Qudsi, أنا جليس من ذكرني. I am the companion of the one that commemorates me. أنا مع عبدي ما تحركت بي شفتاه. I am with my servant for as long as his lips move for me. So what are we going to have a look at today? It's a qasida. Now meaning it is sung in circles of knowledge, and then very often what the scholars would do after their class, for example, then these students of knowledge, they would gather and they would sing songs, like in the time of Imam al-Shafi'i rahimahullah, in the time of Imam al-Junayd and Dhunnun al-Masri and Junayd al-Baghdadi. What they would do, because these people, they would always worship Allah Jalla wa Ala during the day and during the night, fasting and praying and begging and so forth, then once a week they would join and gather together and they would sing these songs. Now, songs of relation, yani of being connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not with music, Now, just an ashid, they would gather. This is what the Prophet ﷺ would hear his Sahaba radiallahu anhum do, and he would encourage it. He would encourage the Sahaba radiallahu anhum doing these things. So, when we look at the Arabic writings, we see that our scholars have written qasa'id, or what we call mada'ih as well, and they have also written manzumat. And manzumat are actually religious texts, which they have put in a poem. And that was to be able to memorize knowledge. Our scholars back in the days and even today, they would memorize knowledge. Knowledge which is not memorized is not knowledge. If you have to speak and look every time in a book, then just put a book in the hands of people. Yes, you have a book which is the book you are following, but as for the explanation, no, it needs to be in your mind. And this is why the Nazim said, مُسَهِلًا لِحِفْظِهِ وَفَهْمِهِ. It is, these manzumat, they are written مُسَهِلًا لِحِفْظِهِ, to make it easy to memorize, وَفَهْمِهِ, and to understand. So we have manzumat on the one hand, and we have what? And we have mada'ih or qasa'id, this is qasa'id, on the other hand. And the scholars would memorize this, their students would memorize this, and it would gather a big topic all together. Like just, if you look at the manzuma, it has a structure, and I will give you an example of kalamullah in aqidah. كلم موسى عبده تكليما ولم يزل بخلقه عليما كلامه جل عن الإحصاء والحصر والنفاد والفناء لو صار أقلاما جميع شجر والبحر تلقى فيه سبعة أبحر فالخلق تكتبه بكل آن فنت وليس القول منه فاني والقول في كتابه المفصل بأنه كلامه المنزل على الرسول المجتبى خير الورى ليس بمخلوق ولا بمفترى يحفظ أي كلام الله يحفظ بالقلب واللسان يحفظ بالقلب وبالجنان ويتلى كما يسمع بالأذان وكذا الأبصار إليه ينظر وبالآيات خطه يسطر وكل ذي مخلوقة حقيقة غير كلام بارئ الخليقة. And then وقل يأنس في ثلث الليل الأخير ينزل يقول هل من تائب فيقبل هل من مسيء طالب للمغفرة يجد كريما قابلا للمعذرة يمن بالخيرات والفضائل ويستر العيب ويعطي سائل وأنه يجيء يوم الفصل كما يشاء لقضاء العدل وأنه يرى بلا إنكار في جنة الفردوس بالأبصار وكل يراه رؤية العيان كما أتى في محكم القرآن وفي حديث سيد الأنام من غير ما شك ولا إهام رؤية حق ليس يمترونها كالشمس صحوا لا سحاب دونها وخص بالرؤية أولياءه فضيلة وحجب أعداؤه وكل ما له من الصفات أثبتها في محكم الآيات أو صح فيما قاله الرسول فحقه التسليم والقبول ثم العبادة هي اسم جامع لكل ما يرضاه الإله السامع وفي الحديث أنها الدعاء خوف توكل كذا الرجاء ورغبة ورهبة خضوع وخشية إنابة خشوع والاستعاذة والاستعانة كذا استغاثة به سبحانه والذبح والنذر وغير ذلك ففهم هديت أوضح المسالك وصرف بعضها لغير الله شرك وذاك أقبح المناهي وشرك نوعان فشرك أكبر به خلود النار إذ لا يغفر وهو اتخاذ العبد غير الله ندا به مساويا مضاهي. I memorized this one in 1998 when I was 22. How old are you?
31.
40, خلاص. I always tell people who are below 18, I was a convert, I had to learn Arabic first and do all of that, right? I was memorizing this when I was 22. So now you in 10 years when you spend your time well, you're going to be an alim. So, and this is, why did I do this? So that you know that people still memorize these things. I just took some portions of it, but we have this in aqidah. We also have this in language. I'm just going to do a short part of it. كلامنا لفظ مفيد كاستقم واسم وفعل ثم حرف الكلم وحيد كلمة والقول عم وكلمة بها كلام قد يؤم بالجر والتنوين والندى وال ومسند للاسم تمييز حصل. You have that in علوم الحديث. أولها الصحيح وهو متصل إسناده ولم يشذ أو يعل يرويه عدل ضابط عن مثله معتمد في ضبطه ونقله. You also have this in تجويد. نعم. And you have this in أصول الفقه. هاك أصول الفقه لفظا لقبا للفن من جزئين قد تركبا الأول الأصول ثم الثاني الفقه والجزءان مفردان. You have this in قراءات. You have this in every knowledge. Our scholars would sit down and take hours and hours and hours and hours and hours to memorize this, then go to a shaykh and the shaykh explains it to you. That is knowledge. Today, you don't need to memorize anything. You don't need to study with mashaykh. You just speak very nicely. You don't even memorize ayat and hadith. And if you memorize a hadith, you don't memorize it in Arabic, no problem. And everybody choose the same hadith. We have hundreds of thousands of hadith, but they always mention 10. And that are then in the eyes of people scholars. The people I sat with, wallahi, the people I sat with, my eyes never saw as humble people as they were. They were so humble. Because the more knowledge you have, the more humble you become. And that is if you seek knowledge for Allah. If you seek knowledge for status, then ma'wak al-nar. Then your ending, your terminal will be nothing but hellfire. But if not, the more you know, the more humble you become. Like Imam Sha'rani, rahimahullah said, the only ones who are sure of their ignorance are the ulama. Because every page they turn, تَقُولُ لَهُمْ كُنْتَ عَلَى جَهْلٍ بِي. Every page you turn is telling you, you didn't know me. You didn't know me. You didn't know me. And then you Google, you have the Googlers, what is this hadith? They find it and they think they control knowledge. If today internet dies, 1% of people, only 1% of people speaking about knowledge will speak about knowledge. If today internet dies, all of the people will be without knowledge. Only the ulama who memorize the knowledge will carry on. You burn all the books today, and internet dies today, you will still have classes, no problem. So this is why, barakallahu fikum, yani, why did I give these examples? Is because we have to know that there is studying and that there is pretending, that we have mandumat, that we have a qasa'id, and what we are going to do, we are going to read the qasida of whom? Of Abu Madyan rahimahullah azza wa jal, which is called Ladhatul Aish. And inshallah, later on I'm going to share a link with you, maybe next week, bi'idhnillahi subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then you, if you like, you can memorize it. It's not very long. No, it's not very long, and it's a very nice poem, bi'idhnillahi subhanahu wa ta'ala. So bi'idhnillahi jalla wa ala, let us get started. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for tawfiq, ya Rabbi, ameen. And Allah understand, he died in 594 of the Hijrah. No? 594 of the Hijrah, rahimahullah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now he says, rahimahullah, ما لذة العيش إلا صحبة الفقراء هم السلاطين والسادة والأمراء. ما لذة العيش إلا صحبة الفقراء صحبة الفقراء هم السلاطين والسادة والأمراء. That's the first thing he says. He says the sweetness of life is found only in being in the companionship of the needy, al-fuqara. We're going to explain this. For they are the true authority, the leaders and the commanders. So now to come back, he said ma, here nafiya, means there is no such a thing as sweetness in life unless in the presence of al-fuqara. What is al-faqir? They say al-faqir huwa alladhi yaftaqiru ila Allah fi kulli lahza. Now he's the poor, the needy, who has always the feeling that he is in need of more. That is being poor. Being poor is not having a lot, or not, and it is not about having nothing. Being poor is not being satisfied with what you have. And the fuqara, in the term of spirituality, are the ones who always have the feeling that they want more from Allah. They want a stronger connection with Allah. So their nights they are looking and crying. And their days they're looking and crying and yearning and begging because they have found that every time they connect to Allah, they are happy. So the faqir is the one who wants to enrich himself with Allah, even if it costs everything. Even if the price to be with Allah would be his honor, he says, "Khudu sharafi." "Khudu mali," take my money, take my status, take my everything. If that is what it takes from me to connect to Allah, إِنَّ اللَّهَ اشْتَرَى مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ أَنفُسَهُمْ وَأَمْوَالَهُمْ بِأَنَّ لَهُمُ الْجَنَّةِ. Allah says in the Quran, Allah has already bought the souls and the wealth from the mu'mineen because they will get Jannah in exchange. So these people, they only want Allah. وَاصْبِرْ نَفْسَكَ مَعَ الَّذِينَ يَدْعُونَ رَبَّهُمْ بِالْغَدَاةِ وَالْعَشِيِّ يُرِيدُونَ وَجْهَهُ. And then عَيْنَكَ عَنْهُمْ تُرِيدُ زِينَةَ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا. Allah says, remain patient with the people who invoke their Lord in need, in the morning and the evening, and do not turn away from them because you wanting a share of the worldly life. When you find people who are like living the life of those who prepare themselves to meet Allah, hold on to them, don't let go. وَاتَّبِعْ سَبِيلَ مَنْ أَنَابَ إِلَيْهِ. Allah says, follow the way of the ones who have submitted to me. وَكُونُوا مَعَ الصَّادِقِينَ, says Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says, fear Allah and stay with those who are upright. Stay with those who are upright. And this is why the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam said, he said, صَلَاحُ أَوَّلْ هَذِهِ الْأُمَّةِ بِالزُّهْدِ وَالْيَقِينِ. He said, the success of the first generation of Muslims was with zuhdi wal yaqeen, abstention from the world and certitude of returning to Allah. Like in the Mu'jam of Imam al-Tabarani rahimahullah. Like, this is what made them prosper. It was, zuhd doesn't mean that you have to sleep on the floor. Zuhd doesn't mean that you can't wear a beautiful watch. Imam Ahmed rahimahullah azza wa jal, he was asked, can someone own $1 million, let us say £1 million, just to compare it, and still be considered a zahid, someone who abstains from the dunya? He said, نعم إن كان المال في قلبه في يده لا في قلبه. He said, yes, as long as the money is in his hand and not in his heart. They said, how many a man lives in a hut and wants a palace? And how many a man lives in a palace and just wants Allah? Some people have a villa but they long for Allah. And some people live in a hut and they long for money. So that which defines you abstenting yourself from the dunya is not by what you possess. It is by how you attach yourself to what you possess. So the fuqara, they are the ones that are always in need of Allah. Like this person that woke up in a state of panic. And they say, why are you in a state of panic? خِفْتُ أَنْ يُحِبَّ اللَّهُ غَيْرِي أَكْثَرَ مِنِّي. I woke up because I was afraid that Allah would love someone else apart from me more than me. So I woke up and prayed. Because wallahi, there are people competing with you. There are people, when we sleep, they're awake. When we laugh, they cry. When we're ignorant, they make dua. When we withhold, they give. But the thing is that we may not know them. You know why? Because they have three qualities. Like in Sahih Muslim, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ الْعَبْدَ التَّقِيَّ الْغَنِيَّ الْخَفِيَّ. إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ الْعَبْدَ التَّقِيَّ الْغَنِيَّ الْخَفِيَّ. Allah loves the servant who is taqi, who has taqwa. Who is ghani, he doesn't depend on people. Doesn't mean rich. يَسْتَغْنِي بِاللَّهِ. Is the one who suffices himself with Allah. من عرف الله فلم تغنه معرفة الله فذاك الشقي ما يفعل المرء بعز الغنى والعز كل العز للمتقي. So الغنى means you're not in need of people. العبد التقي الغني الخفي الذي يخفى عن أبصار الناس والذي يخفي العبادات عن أبصار الناس. It are the ones who are hidden among people. Even their own wife or their own husband doesn't know about their goodness. They know their husband is good. They know their wife is good, but what they are hiding is more. And it's not because you don't have it that people don't have it. Sometimes we think that we live in a negative world. Why? Because we don't see it, but the people don't want to be seen. These people want to be seen by Allah. So don't think that we are allowed to interpret the world through our own lenses. There are still people not being able to sleep because they fear. They fear al-akhirah. Because they long for Allah Jalla wa Ala subhanahu wa ta'ala. They are still there. But you just don't see them. Like the great-grandson of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, when he died, all of a sudden that same night, the poor people didn't have any milk or water or bread in front of their door. And when they watched him, they found the traces of carrying bags, and they knew that he, for all these years, he was carrying the food during the night to the poor. He never spoke about it, but that's when they saw it. So, no. The ummah of Muhammad ﷺ is a ummah who suffices, or who thinks that their Lord is sufficient for them. من وجد الله, remember, وجد كل شيء وإن فاته كل شيء. ومن لم يجد الله لم يجد شيئا وإن وجد كل شيء. The one who knows Allah has found everything, even if he has nothing else. And the one who has found everything but didn't find Allah didn't find a thing. So now he says, ما لذة العيش إلا صحبة الفقراء هم السلاطين والسادات والأمراء. And then he says, when he says, so try to be in their companionship. Why? Because the Prophet ﷺ said, المرء على دين خليله فلينظر أحدكم من يخالل. Someone will be on the same deen, the same way of life, the same standards, the same morals and values as the person that he takes as a companion. So watch out for who you take as a companion. And today the majority of people, their companion is a virtual one. This is your companion. الصاحب من يصحبك. Now is sahab. Now the sahib is sahab. Now it pulls you. So if we have this barakallahu fikum as companion, then we will only live very superficial lives. The religion of the majority of people stops when they turn off their phones. The majority of people, their deen stops when they turn off the computer. And then it's back to the real me. The one losing time. I was there writing about religion, sharing religion. But then when the screens go out, who am I? So this is why, لذة العيش, the sweetness of life. قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم ذاق طعم الإيمان. The following person will taste the sweetness of faith. It's a real taste on your mouth. It's a real taste that is tasted by your soul, that makes you so happy. Like, for example, you're in pain, a bit of penicillin, for example, you forget the world. What if you are in pain, but you find Allah? Will you still experience something? Imam al-Razi rahimahullah, when he spoke about the story of Yusuf alayhi salam, and that the women in the city, they said, show Yusuf to us. Now, because they were accusing the wife of the master of Yusuf, the wife of the master of Yusuf, that she was crazy. She was trying to seduce that boy. But then when he walked out and they saw him, and she gave كل واحد منهن a knife. And when they saw him, قطعن أيديهن, they started cutting. It's not يقطعن, قطعن. Now meaning like very deep, like to the bone. And what did they say? Allah didn't say they cut to the bone and then they said, oh, this hurts. قطعن أيديهن. First they cut their hands very deep, and then they said, this is not a man, this is an angel. Physical pain was not noticed because what the brain released at that particular moment, deriving the brain from the pain to the beauty of creation. So Imam al-Razi says, so what about people who do not look with their eyes at the beauty of creation, but with their souls at the beauty of Creator? If they were able to forget about physical pain by looking at a man, what of those who are connected to Allah. And then it's not because it's not possible for us that it was not possible for them. When they said we have to remove your leg to one of the Sahaba radiallahu anhu, now amputation of the leg, he said, do it when I'm praying because then I don't feel it. When? Like if a fly lands on my nose, I feel it in prayer. I really am concentrating like, okay, I should not move, I should have taqwa, I should, you're thinking all the time about the fly on your nose. The thing I don't try to do now is to wipe it away. Why? Because the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, when a fly would land on their body, they would not go like this because they would not like the fly to bother their brother. They said, I prefer it to bother me than to bother thee. Subhanallah, ajib, sah. So you just keep. So now, but some of the Malikiya would say, no, it's not your responsibility where the fly goes, right? So if it takes away your khushu', just do it away and it's not your responsibility. تطير حيث ما شاء الله. But that's from a fiqh point of view. But from an ethical point of view, they would not even feel it. They would literally pray and the mosque would like crumble. They would not hear it. So this is why لذة العيش ذاق طعم الإيمان. The following will taste the sweetness of faith. من رضي بالله ربا وبالإسلام دينا وبمحمد صلى الله عليه وسلم نبيا. Like in Sahih Muslim. The one who is pleased with Allah as Rabb and Islam as Deen and Muhammad as Rasul صلى الله عليه وسلم, he will taste the sweetness of faith. The Prophet Muhammad صلى الله عليه وسلم ثلاث من كنا فيه وجد بهن حلاوة الإيمان. Like in Bukhari. He said, if you have three things, then you will taste the sweetness of faith. أن يكون الله ورسوله أحب إليه مما سواهما. That he loves Allah and His Messenger more than anything aside from them. وأن يحب المرء لا يحبه إلا لله. And that you love somebody solely for the sake of Allah. And then, in another one, it's two people what? That they gather together. اجتمع عليه وتفرق عليه. They join and gather for the love of Allah and they separate for the love of Allah. وأن يكره أن يعود إلى الكفر بعد أن أنقذه الله منه كما يكره أن يوقع في النار يوم القيامة. So that he detests to go back to kufr after Allah has saved him, like he would detest to be thrown into hellfire. You see all of that? So there is something which is called the sweetness of faith. And I mentioned this before, but I like it that Ibn al-Qayyim said, if you would have, I will just say a candy. He was speaking of a spoon. A candy, these candies that change taste and color, they're probably very bad for you. But every time there's another taste that is released. So imagine now all the best dishes of the world in that candy. You keep on going like this, oh, that's the one from India, oh, from Pakistan, oh, from Belgium. And you feel it and you're so happy. And all by the best chefs, they made this candy. And now, Ibn Qayyim says, after that, if you were to be given a drip of the sweetness of faith on your tongue, then what you had tasted will seem rotten. That's the sweetness of faith. That the best taste will be worthless. So when the sweetness of faith enters into your heart, you can no longer find your pleasure within creation. Done. Because what will surpass it? What will go beyond it? It's impossible. ألا بذكر الله تطمئن القلوب وإذا تليت عليهم آياته زادتهم إيمانا. And they come at rest and peace and everything comes at rest. We try to go to Netflix to come at rest. But then when you stop watching, you feel that, okay, my mind was paused, but I didn't find the rest that I'm looking for. Not saying that Netflix or whatever you look at is haram. That's not what I'm trying to say. It all depends on what you watch. But that thing you're looking for, that you don't seem to be finding, is in lack of sleep and hunger. Lack of sleep and hunger. That are the two foundations that all the scholars of spirituality have agreed upon. All of them. All the different ideology or all the different methodologies in the tarbiyatun nafs wa tathhiriha, the purification of the soul, it is through fasting and night prayer. through fasting and night prayer. If you don't give up a bit on yourself, Allah will not give Himself to you. It is not about how much are you ready to give. It is about, are you ready to give everything? And giving is receiving in your connection with Allah. It's not about losing. So now, this is why the Prophet ﷺ said, جَعَلَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْكُمْ صَلَاةَ قَوْمٍ أَبْرَارٍ يَقُومُونَ اللَّيْلَ وَيَصُومُونَ النَّهَارِ لَيْسُوا بِأَثِمَةٍ وَلَا فُجَّارٍ. Now, Allah gave you the prayer of the righteous. They pray during the night and they fast during the day. And because of that, they are not sinners and not criminals. And this is why the Shaykh said, قَوْمٌ إِذَا دَخَلَ اللَّيْلُ عَلَيْهِمُ قَامُوا فَكَانُوا سُجَّدًا وَقِيَامًا يَتَلَذَّذُونَ بِذِكْرِ رَبِّهِمْ فِي لَيْلِهِمْ وَنَهَارِهِمْ لَا يَأْكُلُونَ صِيَامًا خُمُصُ الْبُطُونِ مِنَ الْحَرَامِ أَعِفَّةً لَا يَعْرِفُونَ سِوَى الْحَلَالِ طَعَامًا فَسَيَفْرَحُونَ بِوِرْدِ حَوْضِ مُحَمَّدٍ وَيَسْكُنُونَ مِنَ الْجِنَانِ خِيَامًا. So these were the people. So the fuqara, because they are so much in need of Allah. Imagine, look, why they are called fuqara. يَا أَيُّهَا النَّاسِ أَنْتُمُ الْفُقَرَاءُ إِلَى اللَّهِ, says Allah in the Quran. Oh people, you are the fuqara, and Allah is al-ghani, and Allah is the rich one. You are fuqara إِلَى مَنْ إِلَى اللَّهِ. You are all needy of Allah. You are all, and this is why when Musa arrived, now, after having fled away from Fir'aun, he said, oh Allah, I am faqir for the good you descend. Yani, I'm needy. So this is why they are fuqara. And then he says, هُمُ السَّلَاطِينُ وَالسَّادَاتُ وَالْأُمَرَاءُ. Yani he says, they are the true authority, the leaders and commanders. They say the status of the alim in reality is beyond the status of the hakim. Because the ruler is in need of his fatwa. The ruler is in need of the fatwa of the fuqara al-ulama. They are the true leaders. The leaders back in the days, even if they were very down to dunya and fighting for the dunya, but if they would know that somebody would be close to Allah, they would respect him. Because they were afraid that Allah would punish them if they would be bad for them. So they let them be. And now why does he say, هُمُ السَّادَاتُ هُمُ السَّلَاطِينُ وَالسَّادَاتُ وَالْأُمَرَاءُ? Because in the eyes of Allah, that is who they are. Because the true ranks is not for the people that you see now. You can be Jeff Bezos if you die without religion. You can be Bill Gates. You can be whomever you want. But a person saying La ilaha illallah has more money than anybody on the face of the earth. And that is what we have to believe. La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah is miftahul Jannah. It's the key to paradise. I mean, we're all surprised of the yacht of Jeff Bezos, yani 500 million. So what? What is 500 million? You read Qul Huwallahu Ahad 10 times and you have a castle out of a carved diamond. Why don't you rejoice with this? Why are we always competing with the people of dunya while we have said that we are the people of al-akhirah? The Prophet ﷺ, or Ali radiallahu anhu said, he said, لِلدُّنْيَا أَبْنَاء وَلِلْآخِرَةِ أَبْنَاء. Dunya has children and akhirah has children. فَكُونُوا مِنْ أَبْنَاءِ الْآخِرَةِ وَلَا تَكُونُوا مِنْ أَبْنَاءِ الدُّنْيَا. Be from the children of al-akhirah, not of the children of dunya. And this is why, when the faqir, because he's so needy of Allah, he's giving up on everything else. Like a poor person, if your child is in need of medication and you cannot buy it, Allah, you're going to work during the night. Now, if your child is in need of medication and you can't pay, you have a double job, 2 shifts, no problem. I go for it, I'm ready. Because you're faqir, and the faqir does everything to leave the faqr. It doesn't stop. But because you always are in need of Allah, you keep on working more and more and more for Allah. Because you're in need of more. Because without Him you have a feeling that you die. Without Him you have a feeling you're not complete. Without Him you have a feeling that you're not happy. So you are faqir all the time, that's your state. Faqir. We are fuqara. So this is, they are the salatin, was-sadat, wal-umara. Because, and then I'm going to read from my explanation, which is, actually I said a lot of this. Okay, that's good. And then he says, فَاصْحَبْهُمْ وَتَأَدَّبْ فِي مَجَالِسِهِمْ وَخَلِّ حَظَّكَ مَهْمَا قَدَّمُوكَ وَرَاءَ. He says, so sit with them. He said, مَا لَذَّةُ الْعَيْشِ إِلَّا صُحْبَةُ الْفُقَرَاءِ هُمُ السَّلَاطِينُ وَالسَّادَاتُ وَالْأُمَرَاءُ فَاصْحَبْهُمْ وَتَأَدَّبْ فِي مَجَالِسِهِمْ وَخَلِّ حَظَّكَ مَهْمَا قَدَّمُوكَ وَرَاءَ. So he says, so sit with them. فَاصْحَبْهُمْ, as-sahib means you, they are your companions. And he said, وَتَأَدَّبْ فِي مَجَالِسِهِمْ, and behave well in their meetings. What is behaving well in the meetings? They say it is like you go to a garden and you know there are so many flowers that you can take with you. Or you go to a treasure chest filled with diamonds. What are you going to do? You're going to fill all your pockets, right? Your pockets. And then even this, you're going to take this and fill it. And then my hat, I can fill it as well. You're going to try to take as much as you can with you. And these are their majalis. Because the people who have a connection with Allah, Allah inspires them. And Ibn Ajib rahimahullah says, it is like they are wandering through the gardens of the unseen, and for you they are taking with them pearls and diamonds, and then they come from that unseen world, that's figuratively speaking, right? They come back and they say, here, they present it to you. And they say, and the only reason why they speak in words is because these emotions cannot be explained in emotions. Meaning that what people who are close to Allah, no word can describe what they experience. It's impossible. And this is why we use created words in order to try to explain what it feels like to be close to Allah. But it surpasses words. It's a connection with the Master of the universe. It surpasses the tangible. It's something different. So he says, فَاصْحَبْهُمْ وَتَأَدَّبْ فِي مَجَالِسِهِمْ. When you go to their meetings, you observe. You take away from the way they sit, from the way they speak, from the way they are silent, from the way they move, from the way they pray, from the way they interact with people, from their words, maybe from their tears when they pray. تَأَدَّبْ فِي مَجَالِسِهِمْ وَخَلِّ حَظَّكَ مَهْمَا قَدَّمُوكَ وَرَا. And leave your self-centeredness. Even if they tell you, go ahead, leave it. Because you know why? Apart from when you are an imam. Now, you are an imam and that's a part of your job, you pray. Even if you believe that the people behind you are 1,000 times better than you are. I remember that once in Jordan, my job was praying, and I didn't know that one of my grand mashaykh was there. Faqihun, shafi'iyun, a very pious person, and I gave salam and I saw him behind me. I said, SubhanAllah, am I leading my shaykh in prayer? Especially that shaykh. So I went. So Wallahi a'tadiru ilaykum. I said, I'm so sorry. If I knew you were there, I would not have led prayer. And he said, لَكَ عَمَلُكَ وَلَنَا عَمَلُنَا. He said, you have your role, we have our role. It's fine. So anyway, when these people are not in a role of having to lead prayer, they would be the last one to want to pray. They don't want to be the reason for your prayer to be, they don't want to stand in that prayer as a leader in that prayer. They don't want that. They would push it away. Even if they would be knowledgeable. Even if they would have fiqh. Today, when you memorize a bit of Quran and people don't choose you, you feel it in your heart. Why didn't they choose me? I have the longest beard. Why didn't they choose me? I know more. Why didn't they choose me? I am this, I am that. These people, they would say, please don't choose me. Please, they would push them away. خَلِّ حَظَّكَ مَهْمَا قَدَّمُوكَ وَرَا. Leave your self-centeredness behind you, even if they push you forward. Because the Prophet ﷺ said, the people whose status is the most elevated, they are the ones who are not known among people. When they are absent, nobody notices their absence. And when they're present, nobody notices. It's the kind of person that comes to the mosque, but nobody knows him. Sometimes you see him, then you don't. But maybe he was always there, but because he's not important to you, you don't see him. And he says, then the Prophet said, when he's absent, nobody misses him. When he's present, nobody notices him. The one that cry over him when he dies, qalil. Yani are little in number, and his status with Allah is elevated. Is elevated. Why? Because the good he did was not known to people, but it was known to the Lord of people. And I'm sure that some of these people, if they could, they would have hidden their deeds for the malaika. But you can't. I'm sure that some of these people, they would want even not the malaika to be aware of their good deeds. And this is why some of the things the malaika don't know. It is what happens in your heart and your mind. When you sit, you think about your love for Allah, your gratitude for Allah. No malak, no angel is aware of this. But then Ibn Rajab rahimahullah in Jami' al-Ulum al-Hikam, he says, but wait, how will the angels write down the good deed then? He says in a hadith it is said that when someone thinks good, his body releases a perfume, so that the angels say an unknown good deed is playing in his heart and his mind. So they write it down. They don't know what it is, so that they too will look Yawm al-Qiyamah and be amazed of that deed. So فَاصْحَبْهُمُ, يعني be a companion of these people. وَتَأَدَّبْ فِي مَجَالِسِهِمْ, and have adab. Yani sit, remain silent, learn and observe. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, اتقوا فراسة المؤمن فإنه ينظر بنور الله. Watch out for the piercing gaze of the mu'min, because he looks by the light of Allah. Like in Sahih Muslim, I will be the eyes through which he sees. It's figurative speech, right? So here the same. The mu'min, if you find a mu'min, he looks at you through the light of Allah, and maybe he sees exactly what you need. You speak to him about you speak to him and he gives you an answer to your problems, without you even mentioning your problems, because they are the guides on the face of the earth. And that's why, barakallahu feekum, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, khayrukum, and the best ones among you are those when seen dhukirullah, yani are the reason that Allah is what is being commemorated. Now, and then Imam al-Munawi rahimahullah, he says, yani their silence reminds you of Allah. Their giving reminds you of the generosity of Allah. Their courage and everything they do is no more than trying to live up to the divine names. And they are the best ones. They are the best ones. Wallahi, today I always say, either you are a receiver, or either you receive or you transmit. So you're a receiver or a transmitter today. I chose to transmit a lot. Like I teach so much. And the reason why is because I'm afraid to receive today. You can receive one wrong thing and it kills your iman. You can receive one wrong word and it sickens you until the day of judgment. You can receive one wrong gaze and it takes you from looking with your heart at the beauty, figuratively speaking, of the Creator, to the darkness of the beauty between brackets of creation. So this is why these people, they protect themselves, their faith, better than we protect our money. Wallahi, would you just leave your bank card with your code just on the street, in your car? You display it like that and you say, it's okay, yani nothing will happen. You wouldn't. You would preserve it like this. But we display our faith all the time by exposing it to haram. And haram doesn't always mean explicitly haram. Haram words, gossip, awra. We're not even talking about the worst kind of awra. Just a bit of awra, a bit of this, a bit of that. And before you know it, the soul is dying within. So this is فَاصْحَبْهُمُ, because when you are with them, you will never see these kind of things. No gossip you will hear. No vain talk you will hear. That are the friends that you should be looking for. They don't gossip, no vain talk. You won't see haram, you won't smell haram. You won't feel haram, they will only make you happy. Every time you leave them, you feel empowered. Every time you leave them, these are the people you are in need of. When you leave them, you feel like you're walking on a bed of roses.
When you leave them, you feel rejuvenated, inspired, reinforced, aspired. You want to find Allah. You want to live for Him. You want to do everything. You want to prepare for the akhirah. If that is not what happens when you meet the people, then you're not meeting the right people. Look for them. فَاصْحَبْهُمْ وَتَأَدَّبْ فِي مَجَالِسِهِمْ وَخَلِّ حَظَّكَ مَهْمَا قَدَّمُوكَ وَرَى. There is no self-centeredness anymore, because the world doesn't evolve around you but around Allah, figuratively speaking. So now he continues, rahimahullah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah grant us and you a deep understanding. وَاسْتَغْنِمِ الْوَقْتَ وَاحْضُرْ دَائِمًا مَعَهُ وَاعْلَمْ بِأَنَّ الرِّضَى يَخْتَصُّ مَنْ حَضَرَ. He says, وَاسْتَغْنِمِ الْوَقْتَ وَاحْضُرْ دَائِمًا مَعَهُ. Make use of your time and accompany them always. وَاعْلَمْ, and know, بِأَنَّ الرِّضَى, that the divine contentment is given specifically to those who are present in their gatherings. So he says, وَاسْتَغْنِمِ الْوَقْتِ, yani use your time well. Do you know that every second is a difference, can make the difference between Jannah and Nar? Do you know that every second can make the difference between living for an eternity in a higher or lower level of Jannah? Do you know that a second can be the difference between doing tawbah and not? Like maybe you have sins you didn't repent for, but because the clock is ticking, you think the clock will always tick in my favor. Until one day, boom, done. And then the seconds you didn't use is exactly the seconds that you will regret. استغنم الوقت نعمتان مغبون فيهما كثير من الناس الصحة والفراغ. The Prophet ﷺ say people make loss, all of the people, in two things: in using their health well and in using their free time well. Imam al-Ghazali in Bidayat al-Hidayah, he says rahimahullah, and for people who only indulge in haram, it's better for them to sleep with the niyyah of protecting themselves against haram. Like if you really that low, that being awake means doing a haram, then sleeping for you is a worship. He said that's the lowest level of all, but that's still running away with your deen from haram. And he says, and then he only wakes up for his responsibilities, if he has a family, and praying. That's it. And then go back to bed. وَاسْتَغْنِمِ الْوَقْتِ. Use your time. Use your time. Ibn al-Jawzi, rahimahullah, he read 20 million pages. Ibn al-Jawzi read 20 million pages. They say Imam al-Tabari, the writer of the tafsir, if you were to calculate from the beginning to his life until the end of his life, and you divide the amount of pages he wrote, it is 40 pages a day since the day he was born until the day he died. 40 pages a day, every day, A4s, there you go. Like that. So these people, they would use their time. No? They would use their time. Because the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, لا تزول قدم عبد يوم القيامة حتى يسأل عن أربع. And in another riwayah, خمس. Yani your feet will not move on the day of judgment until you are asked about 4 or 5 things. And one of the things is, how did you spend your time, yani your life? إِنَّا نَسِيرُ إِلَى الْآجَالِ فِي كُلِّ لَحْظَةٍ وَأَيَّامُنَا تُطْوَى وَهُنَّ مَرَاحِلُ وَلَمْ أَرَ مِثْلَ الْمَوْتِ حَقًّا كَأَنَّهُ إِذَا مَا تَخَطَّتْهُ الْأَمَانِيُّ بَاطِلُ وَمَا أَقْبَحَ التَّفْرِيطِ فِي زَمَنِ الصِّبَا فَكَيْفَ بِهِ وَالشَّيْبُ لِلرَّاسِ شَاغِلُ ترحل من الدنيا بزاد من التقى فعمرك أيام وهن قلائل إنا لنفرح بالأيام نقطعها وكل يوم مضى يدني من الأجل فاعمل لنفسك قبل الموت مجتهدا فإنما الربح والخسران في العمل أضحك سنك طول الأمل ولم يبكي عينك قرب الأجل كأنك لم تر حيا يساق ولم تر ميتا على مغتسل. عجيب. I'm not going to translate all of this. It's all poems in Arabic about death and all these things. The problem is, sometimes I really wish to teach in Arabic. I love speaking in Arabic. When I was in Jordan, all of my khutab were in Arabic, right? And then when I came here, the problem is, I took the Arabic style of delivering khutbah, I took it to my English. It's because I was used to delivering in Arabic. So anyway, so now وَاسْتَغْنِمِ الْوَقْتَ وَاحْضُرْ دَائِمًا مَعَهُ. Use your time well. Like we said, every second can be turned into a hasanah. every second can be turned into a hasana, and every hasana can save you from hell. That's time. واستغنم الوقت واحضر دائما معهم واعلم بأن الرضا يختص من حضرا. And then he says, rahimahullah azza wa jal, and know that divine contentment is given specifically to those who are present in their gathering. And that's the last hadith bi'idhnillahi azza wa jal that I want to mention. Next time we are going to elaborate a bit more about this one. But he says the presence with them can lead you to the divine contentment. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he speaks of people who gather for knowledge. Now, and he says, what are my servants asking? What do they want? And وَهُوَ أَعْلَمُ بِهِمْ, and Allah knows better. But he asks the angels so that they would be stupefied by creation. And he says, يَرْجُونَ رَحْمَتَكَ وَيَخَافُونَ عَذَابِكَ. They long, they hope for your rahmah and they fear your punishment. And he said, did they see my Jannah? Did they see my nar? They say, no, Ya Rab. How would they be if they would have seen it? They would hope for more and they would fear more. And then Allah will say, قَدْ غَفَرْتُ لَهُمْ. I have forgiven these people. And then the angel will say, فِيهِمْ مَنْ لَيْسَ مِنْهُمْ. Among them, among these people that hope for you, that fear you, are some who are not a part of them. They happened to pass by and sat down. They had to pick somebody up and we're in the mosque. So they didn't have the intention to be present in that gathering. And then Allah said, هَذَا قَوْمٌ لَا يَشْقَى جَلِيسُهُمْ. These are people, this is a gathering, no one who attends that gathering will regret it. Nobody who attends that gathering will regret it. So this is why he says, rahimahullah azza wa jal, وَاسْتَغْنِمِ الْوَقْتَ وَاحْضُرْ دَائِمًا مَعَهُمْ وَاعْلَمْ بِأَنَّ الرِّضَى يَخْتَصُّ مَنْ حَضَرًا. Yani the divine contentment of Allah Jalla wa Ala is given to those who are within their presence. And with this we have explained the first part of Ladhatul Aish of Abi Madyan rahimahullah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We ask Allah Jalla wa Ala to make this beneficial and to allow us to live long enough to explain this qasida entirely. Ameen. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على سيدنا وحبيبنا وقدوتنا وشفيعنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين.